yourself and sew every thread, weave in the patterns of light and shred, blending your colors, accurate set, over and under, and over again. You are the craftsman, with in hand. Give life a new meaning. Live life while you can. Before you know, your clothes will need mend. So assemble your thimble, and tailor your ends.
Are you still tied? I know.
Workstations and music tools, we explore theory, gear in 82. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rev. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking IT. We're talking IT. Every Thursday night on Angified.
Oh, the return of Glenn.
How we doing? Back again on a
Yeah.
Thursday.
With a new intro.
New intro. Love the new intro.
Yeah,
Let
we're
us know how
talking
everybody else likes that.
talking shh.
Every Thursday night. Always lots of
Oh,
good
and you like that little and snap? I had to hunt through the different clips just to find the right one.
That's good. That's good. I mean, we had the lion roar, so now you got to go to the other side of it. The ocean. Nice one.
Yeah, and I even snuck in a Santa Jason, a pseudo Santa Jason.
Mhm. That's always a good thing. Gotta love having Jason in there as well.
Yeah, well, it's actually not him, but amazingly, I found a Santa that looks so damn close. I was like, I had to use it.
I found a keyboard player who looked like he was Jason's brother, pretty much. And,
The more I look around, it's amazing how many people look like him.
it's true. Absolutely. And this guy happened to be from LA, so I was like, oh, all right, there you go. He's even in the right neighborhood. Even better.
No, and we also started with a track from Colseth. Special thanks. Our Patreon members are helping us to get things together, and the support over there means a lot. And for those who want to get a little spotlight or highlight, they have an album. Cole's got an awesome album there that I hope people go and check out. Like every track is fantastic.
Awesome. Love it.
And
Cool.
for tonight, we've had a breather for the last couple of months, and I've had a chance to go through some of the questions we get all the time, and I thought this is a good grab bag for October of different things that we get asked commonly. There's a few little reviews at the end that are really cool. Here, let me bring up our lineup
It's
and
almost
we'll
like
take a
tying up
look.
loose ends as far as questions go.
Yeah, and these are the questions that like at least the first couple have been very common over the last year. And the first one is actually one that I'm still trying to sort out myself because you're constantly telling me how, like, learning by ear, you have an amazing ability to pick up what a song is, where it's coming from, what chords are played,
Where
and
it's headed. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and for me, it's always been a struggle, and I'm starting. My ear is getting better at recognizing certain pitches,
Mhm.
but I'm still kind of shuffling around when it comes to the movement of the progression and what I should be listening for
Sure.
to help, like, get better at that. And
Now, for me, one thing is that it's not really like I don't really know. I don't hear a note and go like, "Oh, that's an F sharp," or "Oh, that's a G," or whatever. For me,
well,
it's more
unless
like I
you
see a
got
note.
perfect pitch.
Well, if I have an instrument in my hand or an instrument nearby, like listening to our intro there, it's like it sounds like G minor pentatonic essentially. So, like you get once I pick a note or two, I can find what sounds like it matches and go from there. So it's more of a relative pitch thing. But once I kind of grab onto that, or even just listening to it, before I know what note or what key it's in, I can just kind of hear that it's going around and it sounds like a 1 5 6 4 or whatever. And you hear certain progressions so often that they just start to stand out. And I think the fact that I started with a whole lot of blues and everything was in a very simple structure, like made that really just kind of drilled it into my head. And anything that's different than that, I can kind of guess at how it's different. Like, oh, instead of going 1 5 6 4, it sounded like it went 1 5 and then it went somewhere else and then four. So it's like I'll just take a guess and then oh no, not that one. And the next time around, take a guess. Oh, that one. Yeah. So
Yeah.
kind of
And
figuring it
there's
out.
there's a pretty solid bass line in there that can probably help you to smooth it out fast.
Exactly. And that's the main thing I'm usually focused on is the bass line because if there's, the bass could just be sitting on one note and that makes it super easy where it's just, okay, that's the note and that's where we're hanging out. If the bass is kind of wandering around, you're just kind of figuring out what framework he's sticking in. Like, is he just
Yeah.
doing a couple notes back and forth or is it within this little box or whatever? You can kind of figure out, um, you know, what it sounds like he's doing. Because, if it sounds really, really fancy, like a doodle 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 doodle, it's like there's only so many ways you can do that, so seeing it on video helps. But if you can't see it on video, just taking a wild stab at it because a lot of the things that I've gotten, that are the more complicated ones that I got by ear were just I just kind of go for it and just see like what it sounds like it should be something like this, and I just try something and it either works or it doesn't. Usually it works, and it's something where gets me to figure out where I need to be. And so within a few rounds, I can iron it out.
Yeah, if I can narrow in on that one bass note that gets me to the root and then go from there.
Yeah, yeah.
so
Got a jam
so
on.
this one's going to be coming from Pianote, a site we have looked at many nights for many different topics. They also have the voice site. They have a sister site that's all on vocals, and Pianote is also pianote.com is an awesome resource whether you're starting on piano or I've been at it for 30 plus years and I'm still learning from this site, like incredible resource for getting comfortable with the keys. And Kevin's one of the like great instructors who's going to explain, an easy way to get familiar with what you're hearing and figure out feel out like what you need to learn songs by ear.
Mhm. Very cool.
And the another question that I had to put we've looked at this before, but it is such a I've actually had this discussion a couple of times just in the last month and a half because
Yep.
we constantly are getting, singers who are upgrading and wondering what's the right way to go, which mic should I get to get my vocals, and there's no perfect answer. But the best resource I could possibly go to for a question like this. Audio University, we have visited this site too on several nights, especially when it comes to explaining, the technical things or how things like this work. He is fantastic at simplifying it down and making it easy to understand. And for a lot of singers, I don't think they want to get complicated with like what a condenser and a dynamic mic and the differences. They just want to understand how it's going to work with their voice and recording and what they should expect from the difference.
Yeah. And it's just seeing all those lined up like that. It does look like the end of the night, because a lot of times we when we go to break down at the end of the night, we'll take one of the things we'll do is take all the mics off the stands and put them all in a pile, so that we'll deal with that later. And then get speakers over here, mics are over there. But then I come over to this whole pile like this, and it's like, okay, these go here, match the cables, match the clips back up to the mics, get them all put away, nice and nice and comfy in their house.
Oh, and I wish I had all of these mics. I have about four of them. There's certain ones that are like always good to have in the bag of mics for different scenarios. You guys must have even bigger variety when you're dealing with stage and
He's got the drum mic set up, but it's all the whole thing for the drums. So he's got ones for all the shells, so you can do the snare, all the toms. You got something for the kick. You've got for the overheads. He uses. You see the one on the bottom left there. The
yeah, the little skinny one.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
has two of those that he uses for overheads, little pencil mics. But for almost all of the vocal stuff that we do, it's the sideways one on top, the Shure SM48.
I was gonna say that's a workhorse in the stage.
Absolutely. I have two that are in my bag all the time. Mike has three, I think, in his bag. Plus, he has mostly we have the 48s, but he also has a 58, and then he also had a 58 beta, I think it was. Somewhere we ended up with something that was a weird mic that we didn't normally have that we just added to the collection. But the one that's on the far left there looks almost like the one I'm using right now, which is one that actually has the little on-off switch on it, which it works fine. But I've never really used this as a singing mic. This is one that just kind of came for free with a mic stand, so it's just the one that kind of ended up here. But the one I really want is the Shure SM7B there.
Yes, me too.
The one that has now that they've got the cloud lifter built in also, because it used to be you'd have to buy the cloud lifter separately, but now it's just all combined in there, and there's just a button that you can hit if you don't want the cloud lifter. You can turn it off.
Yeah. That is on my wish list. Santa, if you can hear me.
And we have had people show up to gigs and just they have one of the ones on the left there, or they got a Telefunken mic, or they've got this, or they have something that's something similar to the ones that are on this list, and if they want to go with that, that's fine. They're comfortable with how their voice reacts with their microphone, so happy to do that. But in most cases, they just show up expecting that we'll have mics and stands and all that for them, so we do.
Yeah, and when you're looking at them, you can kind of get an idea of which ones you don't want to drop and which ones can actually take a drop. And when it comes to stage mics, that's part of the reason, like, why, if you're going to choose one, if you plan on just using it in the studio versus actual like ruggedness and might get dropped on a stage, he's going to help to clear up a lot of these concerns and what you might want to consider, because it isn't a perfect answer. It depends.
Depends on the application, depends on the voice, depends on a lot of things.
Yep. And this one is, when we were looking at AI earlier in the year, and we came across Tiff's channel, which I love this channel for, like, when it comes to the IT and IT, this is one of those channels that for me, I get tons of useful information from. She's got a programmer's mind, but she also understands the industry. She understands like where AI is going, what jobs are like up and coming, and which jobs, C++ programmers can still get work. But the big one that's been the last like couple of years, prompt engineering. And I'm not surprised, kind of predicted it when we started looking at the AI stuff, that this is one of those jobs where the salary and the demand is just going through the roof. So for those out there who are considering being programmers nowadays and being in a field that's up and coming, she's going to talk about what a prompt engineer is and why they're getting triple digit salaries, and it's a good thing to consider if you're young and ready to start a career in programming. This is the future.
Yeah, and it's coming on fast. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing is, even a couple of years ago, the prompt engineering, those words wouldn't have meant anything, but all of a sudden,
eight
it's just
eight
everywhere.
months ago when we were kind of covering this and going to Tiff's channel, just in that time, like the salaries have doubled. So
Yep.
I really am interested to see what her advice is going to be here, Tiff and Tech.
Right.
And then we're going to slide over to the mixing side, and Chris Salim, Mixdown Online. This is a channel that I've actually been to on my other YouTube, but he's now a freshie in ours, and oh, when you see what he's got in his video library, I had to pick two. Because like this one was one of the things, like we again, in the last couple of months, a lot of headphone discussions, and especially for the mixers out there, the ones who are like starting to learn how to mix, and I'm like him. I'm an advocate of mixing with headphones. I will go to the speakers afterwards, reference monitors and things like that. They're nice to compare
Hmm.
afterwards, but when you're really going through the tracks and trying to smooth everything out, um, he, he's in my camp of thinking, and I totally agree with the approach he takes. And he's going to be talking about a free tool that will help to make it easier to mix with headphones and actually get more accurate representations, because different headphones, they're not all created equal.
Yeah.
But with some of these tips, it will help to separate, like, the low end headphones and the high end headphones and the results you get. So he's going to give some great advice on a free way to approach this and get better mixes with your headphones.
Nice.
And then he's also going to show us a plugin that we've actually covered or mentioned a couple of times over the last couple of months in the year when it comes to online routing and getting a signal that's coming from this website or your DAW and getting it into something like Zoom or OBS. It really doesn't matter whether you're talking OBS or Zoom. It's one of those questions that all these streamers and these people who are trying to route that audio into Zoom or OBS keep coming back to me, and I've had different answers at different times, but
Yep.
as I look more and more at Session Wire, the one he's going to be talking about here, he's going to give an example of how you can use this plugin, and it's free.
Hmm.
There are additional paid options that can also be useful, but you don't have to spend anything to get going with it, and it really does simplify this solution way better than anything I could have answered before.
Hmm. Nice.
So
Session
he gets a double header. And tell me he doesn't look a little like Jason.
wire. A little bit.
I'm telling you, everybody kind of looks like Jason.
Mhm. Reminds me a little bit of one of the guys who runs one of the open jams by me too.
It's that damn beard.
Yeah, yeah, it is indeed.
Oh, and this last one, this is the one I was telling you about. You are
Yeah,
gonna. This is so cool. Andrew Hong, another favorite of ours. Like he covers everything from like mixing, but it's his equipment reviews that usually like suck me in first, because he's lucky enough to get his hands on test equipment, and the companies really hook him up, and uh, this new toy that he got handed. It's a MIDI hand tracking tool, and it brings things like we've looked at those MPC controllers where like you can slide on the key and
Yep.
you get these different forms of expression. Well,
Mhm.
this has the possibility to really take things to much higher levels, and I just had to include it because I want one.
Exactly. It does remind me of I think we talked about it before, the Leap motion controller, something that I had years and years ago, but it was something that was trying to get to this level, but it was more like the size of like a box of Tic Tacs or whatever. But it would sit in front of the keyboard and would be, essentially it's an up facing camera, but it's not really a camera. It's looking at the field that's there to see where your hands are, and it can kind of tell,
Yep.
but not in that kind of detail for sure.
Well, the tracking. I went once I found out about this piece of gear. I had to go like down the rabbit hole and see like what's it all about. I went to the website, checked out the cost. I mean, we're talking 200ish. It's reasonably priced. It will work with any keyboard. They
Right.
do have ROLI does have their own keyboards that like it's perfectly paired for, but it's basically designed to just go behind the keyboard that you're playing on, and it's universal. So very enticing upgrade to my MIDI setup.
Yeah, for sure.
This one is probably going to end up number 2 on my wish list after that, sure.
Nice.
And I always love Andrew's reviews. He really tests them out. He knows what like guys like me are looking for, and I trust his advice because he puts it through the ringer.
Nice.
So,
And where do you want to start today?
well, we're going to start with the learning by ear. This is the one that like I keep working at, but I know I need to improve on this because I still can't just listen and pick up at the speed that I'm happy with. And I love the tutorials these guys give, the instructions they give, and Kevin's one of the best out there at making this easier to understand.
Mhm.
So I think this is where I want to learn from.
Yeah. And my main advice for the start is just don't be afraid to hit wrong notes. Just, you're listening to something, you don't know what it is, just hit a note and, is it higher or lower? And just kind of work from there and just try to, find your way into something that, you get a good note or a note that sounds like it works. And then you kind of build off of there and you can kind of build the scale and figure out exactly what's going on.
Yep. So this one's coming from at Pianote Official on YouTube. They, like I said, they also do have a website that is the mothership. That's where you really want to go, pianote.com. And their vocal site, was it
Singio?
Singio. And I mean, whether you're a singer or a pianist or both, these two sites are like the best place to start and to evolve.
Mhm.
And
I
they're all
I see a video
they're
for you
all
right there on
over
the bottom.
the
I see a video for you on the bottom there, left-hand accompaniment, because that's one they're
Yeah.
working on also.
Yeah. My left hand doesn't have the same precision that my right hand does. So they do help to cover like all the things that you want to get comfortable with. Plus, you see pentonic scales. I know that's your jam.
Yeah. That makes everything very easy to try to work your way into. Figure out a
Yeah,
pentatonic scale and figure it out from there. Work your way in.
yeah, they're good. They cover it all.
Hmm. Very cool.
So here, Kevin's going to show us how to start to recognize what we're hearing and apply it to what we're playing.
Nice.
Who's heard a song for the first time and can play it on the spot. A lot of times it seems like, oh, like only, keyboard wizards or like really advanced people, they know how to do that. Well, here's the secret. It's not as impossible as it seems. In fact, I've broken it down into 3 steps so that you can listen to any song and know how to play it instantly on the piano. So in order to play any song by ear, you need to first identify the key. So in order to do this, I'm gonna rely on my ears to find something called the tonic. Now, if you don't know what the tonic is the home note. It's the home chord where everything kind of feels like it's finally resolved. There's no tension, and if you were to play your major scale over it, everything would sound like it fits perfectly like a glove. So we're gonna try this with an actual song. I have an instrumental of Sign of the Times. We're gonna try and listen to find out where is this home chord or the tonic chords, right? So we're kind of doing a music analysis right now. And you can do this a couple different ways. Step one is you can hum and just try and find the notes that sort of fit, like, and if I hum, there's this note's in it, this note's in it, this note's in it, and if I found, okay, where's you kind of find the note that you're looking for. And you're gonna make a lot of mistakes. You're gonna hit a lot of sour until you finally find the right one. So this is one way to do it. The next way is to use the major scale. So let's try a key of C. If I play, it doesn't sound bad, but it's not 100% right. What about D? Definitely not. E. Ugh, not the key of E. What about F? That sounded really nice. And does it work over the first chord over here? We found it. It's the key of F right there. And at such a dramatic point in the song too, we found the key. So in order to find the key, I had a couple different variations that I was going with. Pick a note and start playing major scales and find which one fits. And you're gonna have a really hard time at first because some might sound like they almost fit. Like key of C didn't sound bad, but the key of F sounded even better. And that's because those keys are really closely related. The tonic chord again is that home chord. When it finally hits this F chord, it feels like you finally arrived to a resolution in the song, and that is how you find the key. If you don't have one already, download the free PDF below. All right, so step two is actually the real secret as to how musicians figure out songs so fast, because it's all just a simple formula that you can transpose into any key. So now we found out that our song is in the key of F major, so I know my major scale. The nice thing is each one of these notes has a chord that's attached to it. So let's give each one of these notes a number. F is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we get back to 1 again, or number 8. Here is the formula. Number 1 is a major chord, so F major. Number 2 is minor. Number 3 is minor. Number 4 is major. 5 is major. 6 is minor. 7 is one called diminished, and we're not gonna focus on that too much today. And the last one is major again, because you would just start over. So once you know what the formula is, the pop progression actually uses 4 main chords, the 1, 5, 6, and 4. And a lot of your pop songs are just gonna be using those 4 chords. So how do we figure out what those are? Well, 1, we said the 1 was a major chord, so that's F. The 5 was also major. The 6 was minor, and the 4 was major. So now I have 4 chords that I'm really looking at. We have 1 minor chord and the rest are major. So already, this is helping my ear figure out what are my chord options in this song. If you need a little bit more help with them, we actually do have the piano chords and scale book that'll really help you out, which shows you every scale, every chord, all in this book. So if you need help with that, make sure you grab this book. I'll leave a link below this video. The most important step, step 3, listening to the bass root movements. And you might be like, okay, what does that mean? When you're listening, it's very important to know what you're listening for. And when you're listening to a song, we're gonna play that track again one more time. I want you to think of the lowest note that you can hear, AKA the bass. Because again, in pop music, most of the time, if you can figure out the lowest note, you can figure out what chord it is. Because if I hear a D, I know that D in the key of F is gonna be minor. If I hear a B flat, I know it's gonna be major. And if I hear a C, I know it's gonna be major again. So if you can determine the lowest note, that is your secret weapon. Let's play the song again and let's see if we can hear what the bass is doing. So we know we start on F. So this one we have to find. Is it C, D, or B flat? All right, so this one sounds like we're hitting it. So there's our C note right there. And you can kind of experiment. You can hit like B flat first. Not quite. There it sounds like that. There's the D. And then it goes down one more, it sounds like. And he could have gone down to B flat again. I think he actually does that later on at the very end of the song. But it sounds like at the beginning, we're staying between F, D, and C. And just by knowing those bass notes, that allows me to add the chord qualities that apply to these bass notes. So F is the first degree, so F major. D is the minor, because it's the sixth. C is the fifth, which gives me a major chord. So now I have my progression, which is F, D minor, and C. So let's try that. 1, sounds good. There's D minor, and here's that C. And now I just figured out how to play the song by ear. Okay, so listening to the bass is absolutely crucial, because once you hear those bass notes, you just apply our diatonic chords, that chord formula, and you can start to figure it out. Now, there's gonna be a lot of trial and error when you're figuring this out, because if you can hear that low note, and you're like, okay, well there's an F major chord, but then you're not sure if that second note was D or C, then try a C chord. You're like, oh, and use your ears as your guide. You're like, that's not quite right. It's really close, but there's the D minor. And then it goes down to C at the end. And when it resolves to our tonic, our home chord, that's how you know what key you're in, and that's how you know how to play a song using your ears. All right, so this last part is a little bit of a bonus section, but there's still one missing ingredient, is how do you figure out the melody? Well, that's where your ears are really gonna come in handy, because we know the key of F, so I know I have to use my F major scale, right? If you can hum it, you can play it. Ba, 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 da, 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 da. And then it kind of does like a back and forth thing right here. Da, 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 dun, dun. I'm just using my F major scale. E, D, E, D, E, D, C, C. So what if I add the chords to that right now? So that's just a single note, right? But it kind of sounds a little thin, right? How do I make it sound even bigger? Well, let's add notes from the chord I'm playing into the melody. Let's take it up an octave. There's no rules that say I can't. So I can use A, I can use C, or I can use F, A, and C. I can use any combination of this, and this is where you get to use your creative flow. There's a full chord. It's just C and F. There's just a single note. So now I'm using G and C. So why am I using G and C? Well, it's because there's a G note in my C chord. So that's the secret. F, A, and C. Whenever you're playing the melody with an F chord, you can use any of these notes. Same with D minor, D, F, or A. And you just play those underneath the melody to harmonize it and make it sound even bigger. So if I use this trick and I try and play the melody, now it sounds like there's harmony in there. I'm using G and C. And then it sounds different every time I play it. Let's just do single note for a second. Now let's add the sixth. It's sounding a lot more full all of a sudden, and that's that final step, and that takes a lot of practice. All right, so there it is. Those are the steps that every musician needs to know to play songs by ear. So happy practicing, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, indeed. Learning by ear.
God, I wish I had him as a piano teacher when I was a kid.
Yes, indeed.
He makes
That's
it
how it
look
works,
so
though, yeah.
easy. Well, he
Exactly.
makes it look easy, and now actually seeing it applied the way he showed it, I feel like it's easy now too.
Exactly. And not every song, some songs they have a lot of weird changes or a lot of stuff going on and very complicated melodies and a lot of instruments you got to pick through with your ear. But when you're listening to things that are more simple, and that's where sometimes, a four-piece band or a three-piece band, like I'm wearing a Rush shirt right now. So, like Rush, three-piece band, like you can still pick out a lot of stuff and it's still very complicated. But with only three pieces, it's easier to focus on one or the other thing going on. I see Kitty
Yeah,
Cat.
and oh yeah, she liked it.
Nice.
And I liked his song choice there. I think that was a great one to use for this example.
Hmm.
It's one that I actually did figure out by ear. I did his first three steps.
Hmm.
Um, getting the tonic, and then figuring out the chord progression and the bass. Like that's always my go-to. Once I do know the bass and the progression, I'm comfortable with the chords. I can figure out how to attack them. But his bonus there, how he goes about the melody and humming, that's the part that I really want to get better at.
Yep.
I'm glad that he threw that bonus in there because to me, that's the magic ingredient to getting that beautiful like arrangement.
Definitely. And getting the hands working together is another important point that a lot of people don't focus on. Like they think, oh, the left hand is just for a bass note, so I don't have to worry about chords or melody on the left hand. But it's really important to do everything with both because then you're more flexible. You can hold a chord with the left hand while you do stuff with the right, or hold a chord with the right and do stuff with the left. Makes it a lot easier to get some complicated stuff happening. And again, different pieces are useful for teaching different things or different aspects. So you'd see that's one thing that it's good to have a piano teacher for is they can walk you through. Okay, this piece is good to learn how to get your hands working together, and this piece is good to get your left hand independence going, or this piece is good for something like a ragtime piece is good for timing because it's getting your hands back and forth and getting you used to that. So there's a lot of different things that are good to take a piece here and a piece there that are very specifically to teach you how to do certain things.
Yeah, and that's what their lessons are so good at doing. They don't go too fast. They they walk you along through the steps and get you comfortable with each important step to get to that full sound.
Yep. Very cool.
Awesome job, Kevin.
Hmm.
Love your site.
Great sound.
So that was at Pianote Official, and you can also find them at pianote.com, and you should check it out. It is a great website.
Yes, indeed.
And another great channel, Audio University, like my go-to for any explanation on how sound works or how certain equipment works,
Mhm.
uh, signal routing. I mean, we've come here for like some of our more advanced topics, the dynamics of speakers, uh, headphones. Like, whenever
Mhm.
we are dealing with these kinds of questions, uh, he just has it all on this channel. It's at Audio University over on YouTube, and he also has
Mhm.
audiouniversityonline.com. And you will find information for anything to do with sound and making music. Uh, Last week we were covering what stems are, and that was
Mhm.
actually this video here was one of the ones that I had to put in there because when I try to explain to people that stems and tracks are not the same thing, he said it exactly like the way it needs to be said so that people understand that, a stem and a track are not created equal. And when an engineer is asking you for tracks, they don't want this mixed down mess that they can't unmix.
Exactly. Gotta hate when you get a
But
mixed down
what he's
mess.
gonna, what he's gonna help us to understand here is the difference between dynamic and condenser microphones, and probably the number one question that we get from singers who are looking to upgrade their gear or haven't actually bought a mic yet, and they hear different advice from different people, and sometimes they don't get the mic that really need. They just go with the mic that they're told to get, and this can be an expensive lesson when you get to some of these higher end mics. So it's not something that you want to buy without at least understanding why these different mics are used for different situations, and
And
where
even
there's benefits to them.
Yeah, and even trying your voice out on several different options, if you can, like going into a music store where they have mics set up and actually trying it out and seeing how it sounds. Not that it's going to sound exactly the same in your setup that it sounds there, but you can at least get a different, a feel for how this one sounds different than that one and how your voice comes through. Because I have a very deep voice, so mine's going to be represented differently in different microphones than most other people's. So I mean, I would have to sing high if I'm trying to, but my voice still has all those undertones in it. So most of the mics are not going to catch the whole thing, but it doesn't really matter. It's what it sounds like when it comes out is the important thing.
Yeah, and that's when you are shopping around for a mic. Pretty much all of them will give you like a dynamic chart that shows the like mic's dynamic abilities, and
Mhm.
that's useful to get to understand, because if you're looking for that great studio mic that's going to pick up like all the dynamics of your voice, then you're going to want to look at that chart and focus on a microphone that's capable of picking up that dynamic range. And
Mhm.
that's what he's going to explain a little bit here about.
Very cool.
So we're going to look at what's the difference between these two. And for any vocalists out there, soak up this information. It might get you the mic that you really do need.
Mhm.
Or a condenser microphone. In this video, I'll teach you the most important differences so that you can decide for yourself. You can find links to all of these microphones in the description below. Let's take a quick look at how dynamic and condenser microphones work. A dynamic microphone, or more specifically a moving coil microphone, consists of a diaphragm, a coil, and a magnet. The diaphragm and the coil are attached to one another, and the coil is wrapped around the magnet. When sound waves interact with the diaphragm, it causes the coil to move within the magnetic field of the magnet, resulting in an electrical current on the coil of wire. A condenser microphone, sometimes called a capacitor microphone, consists of a diaphragm, a backplate, and an amplifier. The diaphragm and backplate are in close proximity to one another, with a bit of space between them. When sound waves interact with the diaphragm, the space between the diaphragm and the backplate changes, which varies the capacitance and results in an electrical current. The circuitry within a condenser microphone requires phantom power, which is usually supplied by the microphone preamp. Thanks to the generally more rugged design of moving coil microphones, they're more durable against all sorts of wear and tear. For example, the Shure SM58 is known to be virtually indestructible. This mic has been dropped many times, and though it has a dented windscreen and some scratches to show for it, it still sounds more or less the same as it did when I bought it. Some condenser microphones, such as the Shure SM81, are more rugged, but honestly, most condenser mics should be handled with more care, because dropping them could change their sound. I think you'll just need to take my word on this one. Generally speaking, the greater mass of a dynamic microphone gives it the ability to handle greater input levels. On the flip side, condenser microphones are generally more sensitive than dynamic mics, which gives condenser mics an advantage when capturing relatively quiet sources. The sensitivity of a microphone describes the electrical output that can be expected at a given sound pressure level. The active circuitry within condenser microphones will have some level of self-noise, while dynamic microphones are passive. However, this doesn't necessarily mean that the condenser microphone will have greater noise overall. As Julian Krause pointed out in a video, when you take into consideration the lower sensitivity of dynamic microphones, you may find that you'll get a lower noise floor from a condenser microphone because less preamp gain is required. I'd recommend checking out Julian's video to learn more, but in any case, The stronger the signal level going into the microphone, the less the self noise matters. Here's an example of a dynamic microphone, the Shure SM7B, and a condenser microphone, the Rode NT1A. The Shure SM7B is known for needing a lot of preamp gain to make up for its very low sensitivity, whereas the Rode NT1 has a higher sensitivity and requires less gain for someone who speaks quietly, like I'm speaking right now. The polar pattern of a microphone describes how it reacts to sounds coming from different angles. While an omnidirectional polar pattern picks up sound evenly in all directions, a cardioid pattern will pick up sound best from the front and reject sound from the rear. The polar pattern of a microphone can be used to optimize the rejection of room noise, and it can also be used to increase the max gain before feedback. You just need to point the rejection point of the polar pattern toward the source of the noise that you're trying to reject. A tighter polar pattern also helps with reducing the impacts of an echoey room. Both dynamic and condenser microphones come in a variety of polar patterns, but some condenser microphones even have multiple polar patterns that can be selected to suit each situation. For example, this Austrian Audio OC818 and this Lewitt LCT640TS can be switched between cardioid, omni, and figure 8. A condenser microphone will often have a more linear frequency response compared to a dynamic microphone. Don't get me wrong here, these are just generalizations. Plenty of detailed and bright dynamic mics exist, including this Telefunken M80. It's best to look at the frequency response of a microphone on a case-by-case basis. If you plan to record various instruments for various types of music, you'll probably want a variety of dynamic and condenser microphones with a variety of voicings. Another sonic characteristic of condenser microphones is an improved transient response, meaning the microphone reacts more quickly to sudden changes in sound pressure level. You can even find differences in the transient response between small diaphragm condenser mics like the Shure KSM141 and large diaphragm condenser microphones like the Rode NT1A. In general, the lower the mass of the diaphragm, the quicker it can respond to transients. Again, this doesn't mean that condenser microphones are necessarily better than dynamic microphones. They're just different. Choose a microphone that's going to give you the sound you want, whether that means precisely capturing every minute change in SPL, or whether it means dampening some of those details for a warmer recording. Over here, I've got the Telefunken M81, a relatively dark-sounding dynamic mic. Next, I've got the Telefunken M80, a relatively bright-sounding dynamic mic. I've got the Rode NT1A, a large diaphragm condenser microphone, and finally, the Shure KSM141, a small diaphragm condenser microphone. These are just 4 microphones of the hundreds or thousands that are available, and each one has its own distinct tone. So again, I can't emphasize this enough. It's not about which is better or worse. It's about which flavor you need for the situation at hand. Dynamic mics are generally less expensive to produce than condenser mics. If you're on a very strict budget, you'll likely get a lot more for your money when you go with a dynamic microphone than going for a condenser microphone at the same price. For example, this Shure SM58 and this Audio-Technica AT2020 both cost about $100. It's difficult to directly compare these microphones because they each have their strengths, but I believe I got a lot more out of the $100 I spent on this dynamic microphone than the $100 I spent on this condenser mic. Even though I now have several more expensive microphones, I continue to use this Shure SM58 and will for years to come as it's extremely versatile and extremely durable. However, I rarely find myself reaching for the AT2020 because there aren't many situations where it's still the best option now that I have some other mics to choose from. I've left links to all of these mics in the description below this video. Remember, when you buy something after clicking one of those links, you support Audio University at no extra cost to you, which helps me create more content like this. Thank you for watching.
Oh, if I'm buying any mics, I'm clicking his link to get them. There's a few of them he showed there that I would like to get my hands on. I like that one that lets you kind of flip between different dynamics. That's a cool option.
Yeah, for sure. Again, most of what we use are the ones he was talking about: bulletproof, bomb-proof. Drop it while it's plugged in, pick it right back up, and it's still working just like it was.
Well, he's not lying about those 58s. I mean, they have been a industry like standard for decades.
Yep, that's usually what we're putting up on the front line. And we have
Yeah.
57s for the horns usually. So very, very similar. Just instead of the big round bell, it just has the a straight essentially. Not quite as small as the cigar mics, but a smaller top than the 58s.
Yeah, you really with the Shores, you can be sure that you're getting a decent mic. It may not necessarily be, depending on which one you get, it may not be the one you need, but at the same time, you're not getting a bad mic. And the Rhodes that he showed there,
Mhm.
another one that like I would love to get into my arsenal.
Yeah, and as you said, it's great to be able to hear the differences. Having them auditioned like that while he's saying the exact same thing at the exact same volume. Recording it from different places, and that way, when he cuts it in the video, he's splicing in the sound from this one or that one, as opposed
Yeah,
to giving you the mix.
that's why his videos are so awesome. Not only is he explaining it really well, but he's showing them in action, and you could really hear the differences between all four of those. And if you're lucky enough to be able to go to a music store and have that versatility of trying them all out in that situation, you can really feel out which one's going to complement the type of vocals you might want to use that mic on.
Yeah, and don't do what some people do when they sound check for us. Like they sound check a mic and they just go like check check. Okay, yeah, I'm good. And then when they come out to sing, it's
No, no,
they're
sing,
super loud.
sing
Like
like you're gonna
sing,
sing.
sing like you mean it when you're checking the mic out because you need to know how it sounds. At the performance level. So sing as loud as you're going to sing and pretend there's a band there with you and sing like nobody's
and,
looking. Is the thing, right?
and if you're really lucky enough to like actually make some sample tracks with each one, because a lot of what he was mentioning there, certain ones are they're gonna pick up more subtle noises, and depending on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is important when you're comparing them on what they record into the track.
Right. And
You
sometimes
don't
effects can
you
make a
don't
difference.
want a super hot mic if you're in a room where you might have fans or like room noise. You want a colder mic in that situation.
Yep. And that's also where sometimes for example, if I do have fan noise coming from an air conditioner over here, what he was saying about a cardioid pattern, if you were to turn the rejected side of the cardioid pattern towards that, you wouldn't really get much of that noise. You'd only get the reflected noise coming off the walls.
You actually flip the butt around.
Yep, flip the butt over that way.
You notice that cardioid like like look like a butt.
Did it look kind of like like
Yes.
the bottom of the Mandelbrot? It's a fractal. But yes, it could also be a butt.
That's
Excellent
what
stuff,
I
though.
saw.
And a good look at the mics, as you said, a good comparison of them, and definitely follow the links, support the channel.
Yes. Special thanks to Audio University for great information there. I
Mhm.
hope, like the vocalists out there that are looking to upgrade, a lot of them are shifting from doing it on their phone. And, today's phones, it's not hard to hook up a good mic through like a modern Focusrite into the phone. So if you are like upgrading from your little phone mics to something more professional, take take this kind of information into consideration, and it'll help you get the mic you need.
There you go. Good plan. And sing
So
like you mean it.
yes. So now we're going to look a little bit at, this is the IT portion of the episode, and um, what would be a great job for me at this point after like 20 years being a programmer with multiple languages. If I was to get back into programming now, um, I'd be taking Tiff's advice on where to go with programming because I really think we're at a paradigm shift where the programming languages are no longer as important as understanding how to speak to the programming languages. And that's kind of where we're getting with prompt engineering.
Yeah, basically becoming the whisperer, the one who's like, talking to the software and getting teasing out the results that you're trying to get from from the software. But it's no longer about having to write a million lines of code and being able to debug the whole thing and all that. It's more about knowing how to ask an AI how to write that code for you.
Well, and that's where for me, like AI, not a scary prospect. I feel like for those programmers who have spent, you know, hours and months actually going through code to make code happen,
Hmm.
AI is a godsend for like simplifying the workflow, speeding it up tremendously,
Hmm.
and you don't have to focus so much on the language itself, which can take years. I mean, it took me years to get comfortable with C sharp after like, machine language and basic and the languages that I had learned before C sharp. It still took me years to adjust to that language. And nowadays, you've got 8 to 10 different languages that are doing things, including all the web based ones. AI is helping to kind of like corral them up and talk to any language if you know how to prompt properly.
Yep. Talk to the language that does the particular current job best is,
Yeah.
the idea. So that, and again, it is again, understanding, coming from where you're coming from, where you did all the programming already, you understand the languages already, you understand the format, and you understand what to expect from, if a program is going to be written this way, it's going to be doing these things. Those kinds of things are very helpful so that when you're trying to talk to the AI, you know what you're trying to ask for. Like, how to ask it to get those types of results in those languages for you. Whereas somebody who just kind of abstractly is like, yeah, I'm going to get into prompt engineering and just going to ask the program, write me something that's going to do this. They're focused on the result, but they're not going to be able to kind of give it the step by step pieces that it needs to build the car. You need the
Yeah.
engine, you need this, you need that, you need to bolt all the parts together to make the whole thing work. And if you're only doing little bits of it, or you're not getting it all there, so you got to make sure you get all the parts you need.
Yeah, and that's also where prompting helps because as you're trying to like figure out what you need to do, and AI is great at kind of helping you to narrow in, like you got to do this. I was using it last weekend to I asked ChatGPT like how can I make a Super Mario game where I
Mhm.
replace Mario with Jason from
Nice.
Friday the 13th,
Mhm.
and I want him to basically run through the Super Mario world
Mhm.
and do his thing with these characters.
Mhm.
And ChatGPT was really good at kind of explaining, well, you're going to need to create some sprites.
Mhm.
You should consider these programming languages in order to make all the action work and put the game together. It did a good
Mhm.
job of narrowing in on how you would put the game together.
Right.
I tried to get a little more cocky and say, well, can you make the game for me? And, it, it it would go it more in depth as I narrowed in on like what can you do? Can
Mhm.
can you do this? Can you do that? And where it couldn't, it would say like you're going to need to like design this in order for me to work with it.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, again, it's trying to help you, give it what it needs, but at the same time, understanding how, like, when it breaks it down for you like that, we're going to need some sprites. It's like, okay, well, let's focus on making those sprites then. And it can like drag you step by step through the process. So it's like,
Yeah,
after you get
and
your images and do this and do that.
it actually gave me good suggestions on sprite editors. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you can create them with this software or this software, and
Mhm.
it did kind of like nudge me in certain directions so that I could put these pieces together.
Yeah. And again, the you know when we're dealing with just talking to ChatGPT or just doing a single interaction where it's, I'm talking to to the AI and then just expecting a result back. That's one thing. But what they're trying to do now is more build like a coalition of AIs. Like you're building a board meeting of AIs. So you've got several different AIs that are focused on different things. They have different metrics that they're looking at, different things that they're trying to accomplish, and they work together. And then, you have one that's kind of watching over and choosing from the others. So you can build like a whole panel of AIs, and then you get a better result than if you were just trying to deal with a single individual AI question and answers.
Yeah, which means as a prompt engineer, you're really going to have to get comfortable with the different ways of prompting, because they're not all created. Just on the music prompting, I tried Udio and Suno to put together our intro, and they don't take the same prompts the same way. So you're still going to have a learning curve as you figure out how to prompt to this engine versus that one. But getting comfortable with prompting in general, figuring out how to talk to the engine is your first step.
Exactly.
And if you do it right, from what she's saying, we're talking triple digit salaries, and not like at like the 100,000. She's talking like 300,000 salaries for like the really in demand prompters out there. The ones where you're building a whole website and making software or creating a Hollywood production. These are the big jobs.
And again, it's the reason that they're worth that much in terms of the salaries is because they're leveraging the AI to get more than one person's worth of work out of what they're doing. Like they're managing to do a whole team's worth of work just by talking to different AI and getting the AI to assist them. And basically it's a force multiplier when it comes to what you're doing as a programmer. You're able to deploy these things to make different parts of the program that you're trying to write, or whatever you're trying to create, and you're able to get it all together easier. You're more like the conductor of the orchestra, and you have all these other AIs as the individual players that you can now use to create the symphony you're working on.
Yep, it would cost them more to do it individually, and that's kind of why a lot of companies are going in this direction. So this one's coming from at Tiffin Tech over on YouTube, and she's got her Instagram, she's got her TikTok, and this channel, which chock full of IT information across the board. Great advisor in this industry. She's a go-to. At Tiffin Tech, Tiffin Tech.
Yep.
I like her name. Oh, she talked with Zuckerberg. Oh, I'm going to have to come back for that one after the show. I figured she's got ins with some of the like big guys in the tech world. So that's awesome to see. She is really like investigating where AI is going. She's the expert.
Nice.
And here she's going to explain what a prompt engineer is and why these paychecks look so good.
Yep. Excellent.
Around 11 a.m., go into my home office where I spend about 2 minutes typing in some prompts to AI, put out my hands, get fed millions of dollars for this work I do, and then close my computer and go on with my day. This is the life of a prompt engineer. What exactly is a prompt engineer? Why does it pay so much? And is it worth actually learning to become one? Or is this a job that in a few years will fizzle out? These are all questions we're going to be answering in today's video. We keep hearing and seeing on the news or in job postings about these high-paying roles called prompt engineers. And of course, this has become a recent hype with AI becoming about, and there's really two main camps or parties, if you will. One team being like, prompt engineers, not a real job. And the other team being like, this is the way we are moving to, this is in demand. I mean, some companies are paying over $300,000 US for this role for a reason. All right, let's explore this role, answer some questions around it, and, well, get into it. Now, I think to start with, prompt engineer gets kind of a bad reputation because we oversimplify the role. We think, oh, prompt engineer, my grandma can do that. All I need to do is put in a prompt and the AI will give me results. In reality though, what a prompt engineer does is much more complex than just that. Prompt engineer is a professional who, yes, works with generative AI models such as, ChatGPT, GPT-4, and others. Now, these models have gone through what is called reinforcement learning from human feedback, which is how we are able to, quote unquote, speak to them, but more technically speaking, give them prompts and they give us what sounds like a human response. However, these systems are not perfect by any means. They are still in their early stages. A lot of times they have trouble understanding a prompt or a query and then also to giving a proper response. Prompt engineer's role comes in at this point where they come up with ways to make the AI system produce a proper response. One common technique that is used by prompt engineers is called chain of thoughts prompting, which involves breaking down a query into subqueries. And some people in the industry term, that sounds so tech bro-y, but some people in the industry also call this prompt engineering on steroids. So I think this is a good point to do a real world example. Let's do an example of, let's say, healthcare. A prompt engineer who is hired by a healthcare company or a tech company that is managing some healthcare technologies might be employed to refine the request that is made of generative AI in order to help doctors generate more notes more efficiently with less errors. So they're essentially going in and working with the AI and making sure that the responses the AI is giving is more accurate based on whatever prompt the doctor puts in. It doesn't have to be as specific or structured in a certain way. So what skills are really required to become a prompt engineer? Can anyone become one? And I think this is why so many people are really hating or disliking on this prompt engineering role, is because it feels like it's so easily accessible. I know a lot of individuals who are engineers are upset of why are these people getting these titles of engineer when they're not an engineer? That's a personal preference, I guess, or is it? I don't know. Anyways, that's a whole other topic. We're not gonna go there. But at the end of the day, there are some really interesting skills that are required to become a prompt engineer. It's not something that anyone can just walk up and get a job just like that, paying $300,000 plus. There is a lot of skills that are required for this job. And the credentials really vary based on what company you are looking to apply for this role at. As I mentioned earlier in this video, for people who are looking to get into a specific industry, so whether it be healthcare, whether it be fashion, beauty, you will have to have a background in that expertise as to what you are applying. As we know, tech touches every single industry now. These roles with AI will affect every industry. So the first thing is, if you are applying for a specific type of prompt engineer that works for a specific area, as I just mentioned, you will also need to be, to some degree, an expert in that field, because you are creating prompts, working with the AI to ensure that it is accurate. And in order to do that, you need to have knowledge of the subjects you are teaching it. Other skills that might be required on some job postings and on others I'm seeing are not, but really important to have in my opinion. Having a background in coding and machine learning might not be required on all job postings, but definitely is very important and will help you succeed in this role. Having a background with coding knowledge can become really helpful when you are creating systematic evaluations of prompts and working with coding tasks. Now, as far as machine learning goes, this is very helpful as well, and in some cases necessary, in order to really understand the overall strengths and weaknesses of AI models. Now, despite these technical skills, it's not required of a prompt engineer. You're not going to be sitting there typically coding, but having this knowledge, this background will help you substantially. Also too, of course, logical thinking, reasonable skills can be crucial for understanding how the AI will act. These are skills that are really important, and when it comes to logical thinking, this is a skill that you often pick up with coding skills. So although it's not required to have a background in coding, if you do, I think you will find this role a lot easier. And on that note, I think you will be able to negotiate a higher salary because of that past experience. I don't understand, why do they get paid so much? Great question, let me explain. Prompt engineer, actually, before we even get into that, let's clear something up here. Prompt engineer does not always pay a ton of money. We see these articles talking about it paying so well, and there are use cases, which I will get to, that do pay well. But also too, there are times where prompt engineering roles right now are not that high paying, relatively speaking. There's a really big range in those roles. Now, what if I told you being a prompt engineer had the potential, in some cases, to save people's lives? Let me explain. I found this article here that was sharing a story about a graduate research fellow who was working in the Innovation and Digital Health Accelerator in Boston's Children's Health Hospital. And this individual named Benjamin is part of a team that is hiring for prompt engineers. And they're hiring to have someone who can come in and work with generative AI to help doctors generate notes faster. He explains he needs someone who can help us refine the asks of the generative AI. So the information we're spitting out is limited in hallucinations, and each of these tasks, he goes on to say, is going to be really niche, very specific. Their internal system isn't trained on Wikipedia and Reddit, but instead by sensitive notes about diagnosis, patient billing information, and comments between medical professionals about a given patient in an extremely specific context. See how this role can all of a sudden become very important, very intentional, very meaningful when you start putting people's lives on it and thinking about it in the realm of healthcare? Now, this is one example of a very high-paying prompt engineering role. And let's go into something more that's a little bit more generic, because as we've seen as well, that can still be very high-paying. Even with OpenAI's job posting around a prompt engineer, it was more generic. It focused more on the technical side of things, the technical knowledge that you should possess or have experienced. So there is the flip side to both. Having that knowledge is really what is key, and being someone who is very logical and a critical thinker. Now, I've seen job postings going from 40,000 US to 350,000 US for compensation. So this definitely does range. And I think that example of healthcare is such a great one to really highlight how this job is legit and it's needed in a lot of fields for specific cases. So are these jobs going to be around in the future, or are they here one day and gone the next? This is another question that a lot of people, including myself, have really been digging into to try and understand. Because on one hand, it seems like this, in so many cases, is here to stay. It's really needed. But on the other, the way AI is going, it makes you really wonder, will AI just get to a point where it doesn't have a prompt engineer anymore, that it's just its own prompt engineer? Well, let's go back to that story of the individual who was working at the Children's Hospital. He actually goes on to quote that having a trained person interacting with AI is going to be important for a really long time. That might not be the case for all fields, but certainly for a healthcare system. And I think this is a really great example of how this role will be needed in many different industries, very specific use cases, but it might not be the generic or as common of a job as we keep on hearing about today. In any case, though, I don't think that's a reason to not explore this role if you are interested in it. As we've seen with every job, especially with AI and the way it is going, it's continuing to evolve. This isn't something new. And if you are interested in prompt engineering and maybe starting out with a very lucrative potential of a job, why not go for it? The skills you will build through that, the networks, the connections you will build through that, you can continue to build upon. Whether if you are basing your decisions right now on will this job be around in the next 5 or 10 years, I don't think you're asking the right questions. It's more so, will I want to continue to learn and grow with tech as it does as well? Because that doesn't just affect prompt engineering roles, it affects all roles. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video going through what exactly is a prompt engineer, how to become one, and why does it pay so much. Leave in the comments though, are you interested in this role? Do you think this role is legit? Do you think it's a joke? Or how do you feel about it? I'm really curious to hear your comments, and as always, I'll do my absolute best to respond to every single one. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you really enjoyed these type of videos, leave down in the comments other topics you want me to cover. That's how I make these videos, is for you. All right, I'll see you all soon. Thanks everyone.
Oh, she's a good advisor for this kind of industry. She's a champ.
Yep. And as you said, some great points in there for sure.
Yeah, well, that makes me really kind of think about getting back into the corporate world, because these are the kinds of jobs that, like, part of the reason why I left the programming world was just because it got really redundant. It didn't excite me at the end like it had at the beginning.
Sure.
And now we're seeing this industry like completely refreshed, new approaches, and I could see myself being excited as a like programmer prompter
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
at least a while. Like she's saying, whether it's 5 years down the road, whether it's 10 years, whether this is something that like the prompt engineer might create the solution and no longer be needed. But, I'm thinking like Star Trek, there will always be a Scotty. And there will
Exactly.
always be that human who is always going to be important behind all of it.
And so many people are afraid that AI is going to take over all the jobs and this and that. But it's, again, it's going to replace or make it easier for a smaller number of people to do the work that was normally take more people, yes. But that frees up those other people to do other things. And it allows the people who, again, the person who's doing the programming, rather than hammering out lines of code, they can go more high level and decide what chunks of things they want to use and reuse and which things to have the AI actually fill in.
Yeah, I see this as AI is going to change the kind of jobs that are
Correct.
needed, and
Exactly.
especially what she was talking about in the medical world. Like there, that's job security. Like that is an industry that for sure AI's here to stay in a lot of these industries where you get your foot in now and you've got a career.
Yeah, and that medical one was interesting because it is some nuance in there. That it's not just about text and understanding. Okay, this text to do it like filling in forms and putting it like this. It's more understanding which things are appropriate to put into a file or a conversation or whatever. There's different things that require that little
Well,
human.
and it led to her points about like even if it's not just about being a good prompter, it's about understanding the industry and the prompting that you're doing. You do have to be an engineer. The difference between a good prompter and a good prompt engineer is the engineer does understand what they're dealing with in all aspects, and that just like a programmer, if I have AI writing code for me, I have to understand that code and be able to debug it and troubleshoot it because that's what you have to do with code. And granted, AI can help with some of that, but at the same time, you got to understand what you're looking at to know that what the AI did for you is what you're looking for.
Sure. And you have to, it's important to know what language you want it to write in, for example, like what's most appropriate for the thing that you're trying to do. And you can have it, home in on something, whether you're doing scripting or whether you're doing a specific language, whatever you're actually trying to get done, you can do multiple things, multiple ways. So, it might not be the best one that it picks in the first, out the gate. So like, it tries it like this and you say, wait, try the same thing again, but
Yeah.
this time do it in this instead.
Well, and that's why I really like how she described what a good prompt engineer should approach the critical thinking. I'm glad she got that in there because,
Yeah, for
like
sure.
everything she was describing, I'm like, critical thinking, big key. And she eventually like did mention the importance of being that way, but sub prompting. That was the one where like I've seen a couple of different prompters working with AIs, and there's two in particular. Tommy, Open Minds, working with ChatGPT, and Jake Zeke, way back working with the earlier versions of it, and both of them had like a natural ability to walk, kind of wade into the waters of the prompt, get the AI kind of comfortable with what they were looking for, and giving it more information, giving it more details as the AI asked back
Mhm.
for it more information. That's the kind of approach that a good prompt engineer is going to take.
Sure. And even being able to weight the different, the different prompts that you're giving it. Say like this part of the prompt is, 4 times more important than this other part of the prompt over here, because this part is just whatever, we're going to do something over there, but this part over here has to be like this, so you'll have different tolerances in different parts
Well,
of
and that's
as
the
well.
part of prompting that actually starts to feel more like programming again, because
Hmm.
oh, I put things in brackets or I set up variables this way, and how you're asking it and understanding the engine so you can emphasize here, or say like this is important but it's not as important as my first question.
Exactly. Putting things in the right order, having it think about it hierarchically, having it go through everything at the right, you know, with the right amount of weight, essentially, for each thing that it's thinking about, so that it comes up to the right answer that
Yeah,
you're looking for.
I got to go look through her videos and see if she's probably got some in there about like how to set up weighting in your prompt so that you can get better results.
Mhm. One
Definitely
that
going to be going back to look for that, Tiff.
Yeah. One that I remember seeing that from was from some of the image prompting that we were doing early on when we were looking at some of the image generation tools. Like you could have it, weigh this part of the prompt more than that part of a prompt using. At some point, it could be like colon and a number, for example. Like :3 means weight this 3 times as heavily as other things. That kind of
Yeah,
thing.
and I'm starting to notice some of that approach on the music AI
Hmm.
in like when people are saying I want this genre and a little
Yep.
bit of this genre and a little bit of this, and how you order and
Hmm.
do all of that. And what I really want to see over there is like lyric accents, emphasis, because
Hmm.
once you can really specify like lyrics where I want this word to be articulated this way, or strength on this hit, um, I think some of the music AI is really going to take off when, and it'll bring it back to the human again to start doing some of the writing, where like they think about where do I want the hit, where do I want the accent. So don't think just because the machines are helping us to do these things that there isn't something for us to do along with it.
Oh yeah. Not only that, but like even if you look through some of your library there, where you have most of your songs, you'll have like a vocal and a no vocal track, where you'll have a line in there where it's got essentially a guideline for here's the melody of the song, or the person who's singing would be going this note right here. Da, da, da. You could feed that as the key into the AI, saying there's your there follow that, and
Yeah,
and you'll
and
see where the
that's
emphasis is.
that's another thing I noticed with some of the newer versions of Suno in particular has like the ability to like specify this is a verse, this is a bridge, this is a chorus, and seems like it would be common sense for like music writing that you're going to want to specify these things, but the early generations of AI weren't really prepared for that kind of approach. Now they are. They're becoming better at recognizing the structure.
Yep, good stuff.
And, and I'm sure that's going to apply across the field, like she said. This is not one industry that's being affected by this, it's all the industries.
Exactly. Just like with the early days of tech support, there was nothing that was, there was no industry that was not being touched by tech support. Like everybody needed people to fix computers, and there
Yeah.
weren't that many people in the beginning who knew what they were doing with fixing computers. So it was one of those things that it was highly in demand, and it was, you're the guy saving the day, and like most of the people in the company didn't know how to do all this stuff, and you're there to fix it. But then towards the end, it's like, well, now everybody grew up with computers, and all you're doing is swapping out a box, so it's no longer the same job that it was in the beginning. The beginning,
But
you were really a
but
specialist. But
when it comes to troubleshooting, it
mhm,
still takes the same kind of critical thinker. So,
exactly. That's the
for
that's the important thing,
for
is the skills
all
to be able
these
to.
fields, keep
Mhm.
your mind open and be able to critically think and ask questions as you're trying to solve or get that prompt. And
And the troubleshooting flowchart that we think about also, like when we're trying to fix a problem, we're trying to narrow things down, like simplify things as much as possible. Okay, like with if we have somebody who's playing their guitar and it's not working on stage, it's like, okay, well, you know, do we have signal from your guitar to here? Like, let's start there. Like, do we hear it coming
Yeah,
out of the
yeah.
amp? Okay, let's
Is
start with
it the
that. And
guitar? Is it the cable? Is it the mixer?
it's a matter
Like,
of narrowing down very quickly. Like, okay, this is working, this is working, this is working. So we're down to here. And then it's okay, let's swap that. Okay, now does it work now? And all of a sudden it starts working and you're good. Okay, let's go. So,
yeah.
but being able to, quickly narrow down what's going on is important. And a lot of times, like Mike has to keep a lot of that in his head because he's wired things differently at the board because somebody needed something that we can't use the snake for that, so we're going to use a direct channel. So it's like
Oh,
right down the
and
snake instead of
when you do things differently and you do run into a problem, that's a variable that somebody has to like keep in mind.
you have to
Otherwise,
walk through that on
you
your way to
you
the
could
answer.
spend
Yeah,
an hour troubleshooting only to like realize like, damn, of course it's not going to work. We're not doing things the way we normally do.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where he's going to be like, okay, now what can we do though? Okay, let's get the line from here to there. Just go. Like take this whole thing out of the equation.
Yep. So that's how you troubleshoot. And
Yep.
if you want to learn more about how to do that and get into this industry, at Tiffin Tech, she is a champ.
Yes, indeed. And we'll be back for more prompt engineering stuff and more AI stuff for sure, because, it's a subject we've gotten more into and it's something that's, it's taking off exponentially. So it's going to be just more and more prevalent everywhere.
Yeah, she might convince me to jump back into that programming pool.
Yeah. I mean, you are, that's the thing is like, you do have, a uniquely qualified set of skills there from the programming that you've done over the years and the different kinds of things, programming AIs even at different times, all that kind of stuff does feed into the whole same thing. So,
Oh yeah, the trading brain that I was doing back in 2000, that was AI. Essentially, you're feeding in like, algorithms for traders and how they're shifting money around. And back then, we didn't have the AI tech that we have now. So we kind of had to like invent the wheel.
exactly.
But
Now it's been invented.
this seems so much funner. Like now
Oh,
I
yeah.
wouldn't mind coming back to it now that it's now that it's been fermented.
Yeah. The genie's out of the bottle at this point. Yeah.
Thank you, Tiff, for that information.
Indeed.
So we're heading up to our double header here.
Right.
Chris Salim, Mixdown Online, freshy channel for us. And when it comes to the mixing, like the Mixdown, he's not kidding. The videos, like I said, I started going through the channel and I'm like, damn, you know what? I want to cover this and I want to cover this and I want to cover this. And he just talks about everything that guys like us are constantly having to answer questions about. And when I find a channel like this, I gotta share this love.
Oh, yeah.
It's at Mixdown Online on YouTube, and he's got 3 more links. Yeah, he's got his YouTube, his Instagram, his Facebook, and he does have a mothership, Mixdown Online.
It's the way to do it.
You'll see in his library of videos tons of things that will pique your interest.
Oh, yeah.
On the gear side, on the software side. One thing I will definitely say, if you're a Cubase user out there, because we've looked at a lot of Reaper in the last couple of months. A lot of our videos have kind of been centered around Reaper. It's another great DAW that several of us use, especially Jason. But if you do use Cubase, this is a must go to site because his Cubase knowledge and tips are off the charts useful. And
Nice.
and I've considered, with Cakewalk now, like it's in flux. It's getting turned into a paid product, and price wise, Cubase or Cakewalk, I'm kind of on the fence. If I'm going to spend the money, I was a long time Cubase user, late '90s until mid 2000s. That was my go-to DAW. So if I do go back there, at least I know I've got a great resource here for diving back in there. It's changed a little bit in the last decade.
Yeah, for sure. A lot has changed, but again, a channel strip is a channel strip. Effects are effects. Things are still where they are. So we can still find what we need.
Yeah, yeah. It hasn't changed much aesthetically, but as far as like the hidden
Under the hood.
tips and tricks, that's where he shines.
Nice.
And he does great with plugins. Another favorite of mine with these channels is, hook me up with some good plugin information, plugin reviews. That's as good as hardware reviews for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And in fact, both of these kind of tie in there, because he's going to talk about one plugin here that's going to help for headphones, and then the next video afterwards is going to talk about another plugin that helps with signal routing. So, Chris, you get a double shout out tonight.
Double whammy.
But this first one, because I'm an advocate of headphone mixing as well, and what he's talking about in here just it piqued my interest right away, that like something that can help to improve your headphone mixing. And it actually kind of it's simplified, and it's free. So like, that's not a hard sell for me to want to check it out. And he is convinced with this approach that he's going to keep going this way. He will never mix on headphones without this, and it's free.
Nice. Good combination.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan on mixing on headphones. I've been mixing on headphones for quite a while, on top of using my studio monitors, but I do like the experience when mixing on headphones for several reasons. And there are tools out there to help with that experience, like room emulation plugins, that I don't use often, but still can be very useful to bring you in a studio environment when mixing using headphones. There's tools like Can Opener that will fix the crossbleed or crosstalk problem we have when mixing on headphones, and also tools like Sound ID Reference to flat up the EQ curve of your headphones when mixing, which I'm not a fan of, to be honest with you. Sound ID was never a tool that I used a lot with my headphones. Actually, I just use it with only one pair of headphones that I don't mix with a lot, and for the rest I just use my headphones as they are without any EQs whatsoever, until a few months ago, when I landed on a video made by Paul III about EQing headphones. Now, I don't know Paul at all, never met him, never spoke to him, okay? But quick shout out to Paul, because this video was a eye-opener for me anyways. And he also made an interview with Imra Celik, who is an award-winning mixing engineer that mixes on headphones and that also use the Harman Curve targets. So what the heck is the Harman Curve target? You're gonna ask me. The Harman Curve is a frequency curve for headphones that aims to create an audio experience close to the sound of high-quality speakers in a controlled environment like a recording studio, which helps to achieve a well-balanced mix that translates well on most systems. So that is the whole idea about using the Harman Curve to EQ headphones, especially when mixing on headphones. So I've been using the Harman Curve since I've watched this video. I wanted to test it out, see how it goes. Honestly, I am hooked. So from this point, I started to EQ all of my headphones, and for me, they sound way better. And on my side, I love it. I love applying this type of EQ on my headphones when mixing. And yes, my mixes do translate way better when I mix on headphones on most systems. And that is what is the most important for me, especially when mixing on headphones. So let me show you the process I do to apply this type of EQ curve on my headphones. Okay, first, let's go on a website called autoeq.app. It's a free resource website where they list a bunch of headphones, if not all of them. I'm gonna say most of them. So let's go and EQ these Sennheisers HD490 open back headphones. They're good headphones, by the way. So I'm just going to look it up on top. Sennheiser HD490 Pro, and the one that I have are with the mixing ear pads. And there you go. Okay, let's break this down. First, on the left, I have different targets I can choose from. I use the Harman over-ear 2018. Now, there's several target versions of the Harman curve. They updated that through the years, but this one is the one I like so far. But they are pretty close to each other, so it doesn't matter much. I'm going to uncheck those and just keep the target option. So this is what the Harman curve looks like, okay? And by clicking raw, this is the curve of the headphone. Let me bring the target back. So there's a bit of differences. So next I'm going to go on the right side and select an EQ app. Okay, now there's a list of several apps you can use. Maybe you already use some of those options straight on your computer, whether you're on Mac or PC. But in my case, I want to use a regular EQ that I'm going to add inside Cubase. So I'm going to select Custom Parametric EQ, and it's going to recommend an EQ curve for these headphones. So I'm going to click on Equalized, remove Raw, and there you go. So this is my new EQ curve that is close to the Harman curve. And close is good because I don't need to be super on target, and the reason is I do some adjustments by ear afterwards. Because with the Harman curve, it will add more bass in general, especially on headphones that are lacking bass, and sometimes it might be a bit too much, and this is what happened in my experience on all of my headphones. I always had to tweak the amount of bass frequencies afterwards. Individual listening preferences will vary from one individual to another. Now, the Harman curve was based on a collective listener data, so some engineers may prefer a different tonal balance depending on their personal taste. So that's why on my side, I do make some adjustments. But this is a very, very good start. There's still room to play around the settings from these filters, and that will adjust the results which are going to be listed at the bottom of that page. So those are the settings I'm going to add to the EQ I'm going to work with in Cubase. And this is what I did. So if I go on Cubase, I'm using the Pro Q3, and I have a bunch of presets, and those are the EQ settings I needed to add on the Pro Q3 to EQ my headphones. Like I told you before, I did some adjustments. I brought down a bit of the low end, same for the top end, just to bring them a bit more to my taste, and that was good enough, and I was good to go, and that did the job pretty well. Now, there's something here that I need to mention. If you're planning on using the Pro Q3 especially, FabFilter uses bi-quad filters, so that means that my Q settings are not going to be the same, like listed right here. So to convert that Q factor to my FabFilter Pro Q3 EQ, I needed to multiply the value by 1.41, and that's it. So that is the only thing if you're planning to use the FabFilter Pro Q3 for other EQs. No problem whatsoever. So I just wanted to point that out. So this is what it looks like. Now, I did the same with my Odyssey MM500, and honestly, I like them better with the EQ on. It's crazy. Let's select this one, and this is the EQ curve I have for these headphones. So let's go back to the website. MM500 Odyssey, and there you go. So I did a bit of tweaking, especially to bring down a bit of that bump that I have. Now, when I do tweaking, I do look at the frequencies from 20 Hertz to around 5K, and I try to get as close as I can to the curve. Above 5K, I don't bother much. There's too many variables depending on the headphones you use and the way they're designed, that it doesn't matter that much, and I do the adjustments by ear afterwards if needed. But now I want to bring that down a bit. Now, these are not super easy to adjust, okay, but what I'm going to do in this case is add a filter. I'm going to add a filter, and I know that the problem that I have is at around 3K. So I'm going to bring the minimum frequency to 3000 Hertz to 4000 Hertz. I'm not going to do anything else. And there you go. Now it brought down a bit of that bump. and the rest stays the same. So I think I'm good with that. Okay, and everything below is close to what I need. Okay, so I'm gonna keep it as is, and again, this is what I ended up with after I did some quick tweaking, and that's it. It's awesome. I love it. And something else important that I also do is I bring the output level of the EQ to the recommended preamp level of, in this case, is minus 6.2, so I just brought it down by minus 6. It's a bit normal because we're boosting frequencies. Important to balance that out, or else you're gonna peak your EQ plugin, and you don't want to do that. On my end, I love it. I've been mixing with this EQ curve for months. I do like EQing my headphones this way better than using Sound ID reference. For headphones anyways, okay? On speakers, it's a different story. Honestly, my mixing on headphones experience has bumped a notch. So my recommendation, if you mix on headphones, try it out. See if that works for you. It's gonna take time. It's gonna take some time to get used to it. It doesn't mean that it's gonna work well for you. And then you'll see, check if your mixes translates well, because that's the whole point. The whole point is to get a better workflow, a better experience, mix quicker, and of course, the most important, having an easy way for your mixes to translate way better on other systems. So if you want to know more about the science behind the Harman curve, I'm gonna leave some links down below that you can check out. Until next time, take care and see you.
Oh, Chris, I am going to those links. I do want to know more about that Harman curve. Is that new to you?
Yeah, actually, I haven't used that much, but that does look like it would be very useful because, again, just the fact that it would make the headphones get the rest of all that, frequency range that you're looking for, getting it all in there
Yeah,
at the
that
right
that
levels.
is a term I've heard before, but it never clicked, never connected till now. And
Mhm.
I did check out that Paul video that he had mentioned that had got him going down this
Yeah.
rabbit hole, and
Yep.
that's one that we might visit as because I'm going to test this weekend.
Nice.
I went to the Auto EQ
Hmm.
app site. Very straightforward. This is a nice, easy approach to something that like can be complicated. Me with EQ is I'm still like green when it comes to proper EQing, and the idea that like I can tweak up these different headphones I have in the room to kind of calibrate. This goes back to the mics we were looking at earlier. And
Sure.
this is kind of like a way of adjusting for these different headphones so that you almost feel like you're listening to reference monitors with the headphones. This
Hmm.
is a cool idea.
Now, one thing that I have here that would be useful for a headphone test like that is a headphone amp, where it basically just takes either a single quarter inch or double quarter inch, signal, and then pumps it out to up to 4 separate headphones with individual, volume knobs. But you could have them all set, at the same way, and you could plug in 4 different sets of headphones and have something playing through it, and just go from
But
one to the next to the next and stuff
and
like that.
that'd be a way of actually comparing what you're adjusting here to see the effect across different headphones.
Exactly. And you might find that, when you're doing a certain genre of music, a certain style of music, that might be better for these headphones, or, you might like the way it sounds better on those headphones when you're doing a different style.
Oh, this is going to be a fun experiment.
Indeed.
I can't wait to see the results. Definitely going to be doing some mixing this weekend, and definitely going to try this approach.
Mhm.
Very persuasive, Chris. Very persuasive.
Indeed. Good stuff.
And now he's going to persuade us on a plugin that really, as I look at it more and more, solves an obstacle that has been very complicated for years now. People who are trying to route like from their DAW into Zoom or through OBS and getting that ASO mix that you might have in your DAW and getting that signal to actually go into something that you want to stream out or send into Zoom. There has not been elegant solutions. VB meters is the
Like I say,
one that,
VB meters and banana, was it at one point?
yeah, or potato, depending on how complicated you want to get. But even after getting it set up right, I still don't incorporate it into my setup because it requires drastic changing of like the core audio setup, and sometimes I don't want to be in that setup, and it's not easy to like turn it on and off.
Sure.
But what he's going to be talking about here is session wire, and how easy this approach actually turns all of that into. It is a like a kind of a virtual patch bay kind of approach, but it works so much more elegantly as a VST plugin. If you're going from your DAW, which this is what a lot of us want to do, is be able to pump the music out of where we're making it and mixing it into these other engines. This is a nice approach, less complicated.
Yeah, and that's the main thing. Like you said, it was a little bit convoluted the way it was doing it before, but I did appreciate the way that it was doing the virtual patching previously.
Yeah, and the problem with the VB approach was you have to already be comfortable with patching audio, like in the physical world, in order to wrap your brain around routing it in the virtual world. And that's where the complication came in. This kind of takes a plug and play approach where it's like, boom, set this as the input for your mic and you're good to go.
Yep. That's one of the things that with the Studio Live boards that we use, one of the things that Mike does a lot is virtual routing, same kind of thing where you can say, okay, whatever I have plugged in on 2, I want that signal to go to channel 10, for example. So like when I'm recording, like if we're recording Cousin Jeff and he's doing keyboard parts and I just want to record him doing a keyboard part, and then I want to record another keyboard part separately, rather than moving something or going somewhere else, I'll just enable another channel, not change any plugs anywhere, but just tell it like, channel 11 is coming from plug 10, and then channel 12 is coming from plug 10, and I can just record on different channels, while not actually changing any physical connections, but just routing it internally like that. So once you get your head wrapped around that, then it is a lot easier to start looking into the way to do these things.
And it is still better than the old days where you had to actually unplug them. And I felt like an operator, in the old days, like the old school operators from like the 40s and 50s, like routing cables to patch calls. And
exactly,
digital definitely made it easier because you don't have to physically do it, but it didn't make it less complicated.
Yep. And you still, when you're trying to troubleshoot things, you still have to go step by step, and you got to think about the route that you're going through. And it's like, okay, it's going to channel 10. So you go check channel 10 and you say, channel 10 is looking at input 2. That's the problem. Like you'll be able to track down where your problem is at that point.
Yeah, and it gets even more squirrely when you get into effects routing and auxiliary sends and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. And that's where you get somebody saying, like, can you take all the guitar out of my monitor? And it's like, wait, there's no guitar in your monitor, but they're just getting the reverb from the guitar into the monitor. And it's like,
yeah. And it's the monitor routing that really will like blow your mind up.
Exactly.
So let's take a look at going from Spotify to Cubase to OBS, and keep in mind, you can replace OBS with Zoom or something else. You can replace Cubase with Reaper, Cakewalk. The logic is the same, and that includes Logic the DAW.
Indeed.
Cool. I have the Amazon Music app open on my computer. My single is playing. If I go in Cubase, I have the music coming out of Amazon Music going straight into a Cubase track. And I did that with only one plugin, which is the same plugin I use to get music out of Cubase into OBS, which is my screen recording software. And the best is the plugin is 100% free. Hey my friend, Chris here. Thanks for watching this video. Okay, let's jump right into it. Several years ago, I published a couple of videos talking about ways you can use reference music from streaming services straight into your own DAW. Now, the plugin I was using at the time was called Restream, and that plugin has not been updated for quite some time. And until today, I've been receiving questions about this plugin. Why is it not working anymore? And I think this plugin was a Windows plugin only, if I'm not mistaken. So it doesn't matter if it works or not, because I actually have a new solution that I've been working with for a couple of months, and it's called Session Wire. Now, on one of my last videos, I talked about Session Wire because this is a plugin I use on my control room, and it's also a full platform that I use when I collaborate with clients for mix revisions, which I'm going to make a full video on later. So I'm going to leave the link down below. Go download the free plugin bundle by Session Wire, which includes 5 plugins: Session Wire Send, Session Wire Receive, there's the TalkBack Send, TalkBack Receive, and the TalkBack plugin. If you want me to do a full video on the TalkBack plugins, let me know, and if I have lots of demands, I will do so. But for now, I'm going to focus on 2 plugins out of this bundle, which is the Session Wire Send and the Session Wire Receive. So that is the Session Wire Receive. If I go back to my Amazon Music, click on play, there you go, I have some signal coming into this plugin. The reason why is very simple. I'm going to go back to my application here. I actually set up the output going out of the Amazon Music app, and that can go for Spotify app or the Apple Music app, I assume, and I selected from SW, which stands for Session Wire. Now, the reason why I see this option as an audio driver, it's that because the Session Wire Receive plugin makes the bridge between my computer and my DAW, which is Cubase in my case. And that is actually very cool. So it acts a bit like an audio driver. So I can set up the output of Amazon Music and select the Session Wire plugin as an audio device. So that means I can also do the same for my full computer. So I have the sound of my computer going into from SW, which is the Session Wire plugin. So if I go and check out one of my videos from YouTube,
Thanks.
there you go, you have it.
So, boys, what's the plan for?
It's playing straight in my Cubase track, which is pretty cool. So from this point, I can actually record the signal or just monitor the signal. I can do whatever I want. And this is how I use my mix references in my mixing sessions. I have that one track where I installed the Session Wire Receive plugin. And from this point, I use that channel as my main mix reference channel using my mix reference playlist. And before you ask, it doesn't affect the quality at all. Now, one reason why I like to work with Amazon Music, and this is not sponsored, is simply because it offers high quality, lossless music, okay? So it's not the MP3 conversion, fully lossless, and this is why I like to use Amazon Music, especially when working with mix references. And the plugin will not affect the sound whatsoever. It's going to go straight in Cubase, keeping the same sound quality. To prove that up to you, I'm going to play my single from Amazon Music straight in Cubase using Session Wire. I already have the original master in my session, and I'm going to compare both to make sure the quality is the same. So I'm recording on a separate track the signal coming from Amazon Music, and then I just need to align them perfectly, making sure also that the volume is the same, which they are at the moment, and then it's just a matter of switching the polarity of one of the tracks, and there you go. I don't have any more signal. So that means that both recordings are exactly the same, which is awesome. So this way, it's very easy for me to just go from my mix to a reference mix. And then there's the Session Wire Send that I have straight into the insert section of the control room in Cubase to be able to stream the audio coming out of Cubase straight in OBS, which is the software I use to do the screen recording of my videos, and also to stream live with my MCC members. So when we do mix revision sessions, the audio coming out of Cubase is going straight into OBS through the Session Wire Send plugin. And of course, when I use the Session Wire application to do mix revisions with my clients, it will use this plugin to feed the full Session Wire application, which again, I'm going to make a video on this one later on. So now let me open OBS, and I'm actually recording right now, as you can see. So in OBS, I have the Cubase audio, which is my channel to record the audio coming out of Cubase. I'm going to click on the properties, and there you go. You have the list of all the devices I have on my computer, and then I just select the 2SW device, and I'm good to go. Now I have like my mix coming out of Cubase, going straight into OBS with this one plugin. Very cool. So that's simple, very simple to use, very useful for me anyways, and it's totally free. The only thing to note is that you cannot use more than one instance of the Session Wire Send and also one instance of the Session Wire Receive plugin, but you can use one of each in the same session. If you want to know what other plugins I use in the Cubase control room, you need to watch this video. Go and download the Session Wire plugin suite. It's 100% free. Link is down below. Let me know what you think. Until next time, take care and see you.
Oh my God, that is so damn useful, Chris.
Yeah, it's definitely very cool. I like that. I mean, it does
Well,
remind me a lot of
you
the
can
ear trumpet,
bet
like you were saying.
you can bet we're gonna see. You can bet you're gonna be seeing that implemented into. We have multiple mixers, and that's been the challenge. Is like Jason's mixes, my mixes, being able to share and get past that like compression issue that we sometimes deal with over on the Zoom side. This is going to help to solve some of that.
Yeah, for sure. And just again, looks nice and easy to use. It looks like it's nice and streamlined, so that's very cool.
And it did remind me of trumpet. It has that. Ear trumpet has the ability to route like the audio to different places or turn it on and off and only hear what you want to. It's basically like the ultimate mixer for Windows.
Yeah.
But with this elegant approach, just the send and receive, I'm curious as to the other plugins because the TalkBack, like it's kind of bringing in studio options because the engineer wants to be able to talk back to the musicians, wants them to hear what they're telling them without affecting the recording. I'm curious to see what the whole suite of plugins does.
Yeah. For me, I think I would probably mostly use the send and receive, but I would check them all out too.
Well, I think that's why he covered the meat and potatoes there, but I bet you he does play around with the other ones. If he's doing mixing like tutorials and seminars and actually working with people on their mixes like remotely, which is where I first heard of Session Wire. Like one of our episodes from a couple of weeks ago was all about like mixing remotely, and that's where the Session Wire buzz started to hit my ears. But seeing it this way, in an example like this, I know we're going to start incorporating that into some of our workflow.
Yeah, most definitely.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, that one definitely stood out for me as like ready. That is ready for me to use. And that's an awesome review. You have an awesome channel. He double whammied us there because the EQ information and this kind of mixing solution at Mixdown Online. You are now a new favorite. You're on 2 of my YouTubes.
There you go. And again, free software to fix a problem that you didn't even necessarily know you had, but this is one of those things that it's good to find a solution like that, and especially when it's free software like that.
I knew we needed to have a solution for that because we've been fighting with it for years.
As you said, Ear Trumpet made it a lot easier with different volume levels. Like if we're in the middle of a Zoom conversation and I have something playing in the background, I can sit there with Ear Trumpet and just very easily equalize volume of everything that's going on.
Yeah,
It's
it's
very
nice
big.
to have a virtual mixer. And in this case, by using this, routing it into your DAW, it kind of turns your DAW into the virtual mixer.
Yeah. And like you said, the reference track, having that piped right in, that's beautiful. Yeah.
And especially non-compressed. Like he's looking for the same kind of thing I am. Like you can't mix with other engineers online with variables like, oh, it's coming through Zoom compressed. Like what I hear is not what is likely what
Yeah.
you're hearing on your end. So this kind of gets around some of that,
Yeah, exactly.
especially if somebody can be running the plugin on their DAW and I can send it straight from my DAW to their DAW without having to go through a Zoom or an OBS. That's a big, big plus.
Sure. Always
So,
the question about network speeds in between, but that's all right.
yep. Well, yes, that's when it comes to working remotely, just like gaming, it's always a consideration.
Yep.
And
Right.
for our last one, this one is a hardware teaser, a hardware review. New product ROLI came out with it, the ROLI Airwave, and Andrew Hong at Andrew Hong over on YouTube. He's also, whoa, 8 links. This boy is everywhere. Well, he's got his music channels and he's got a Bandcamp. Oh, and his online class monthly.com/Andrew. Oh, go look at his sites. Yeah, he is a worthy follow.
Indeed.
Whether it's for the information or the reviews or just the music in itself, because he's an awesome musician.
Mm-hmm.
And props that he's partially deaf. He explained that we actually looked at that earlier this year. He's dealing with some hearing issues and exploring ways to work with it, work around it. I got to give him props for never letting an obstacle get in your way there.
Mm-hmm.
He's an
Indeed.
inspiration.
Exactly.
So what he's going to get to review here, ROLI hooked him up because he does get hooked up by the manufacturers. He's my idol there. Wish they would give me one of these to play with. I would tell them what I think. But this will turn hand gestures into MIDI triggers. And think about the possibilities of. I kind of have something like that with my Roland. It's got a V-beam where if I put my hand over it, it's a laser and I can go up and down.
Mm-hmm.
But this turns it into a whole nother level.
Nice.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be used for music. I think in the future, something like this, you could start to see a combination of this with virtual screens, and that's how you get like the Tony Stark effect, where it's like, oh, I'm moving screens in front of my face, and hand gestures is a big part of making all that work. This kind of technology is what's going to get us there.
Could also be a way for in the same way that we have computers that can just be, do speech recognition and they can understand what you're saying. If you could use gestures like that, then a person who is unable to speak but speaks sign language would be able to gesture and control something.
Oh yeah, I hadn't even thought of that, but you take sign language mixed in with this, and it could actually turn into speech.
Yep.
Yeah.
Food for thought.
Let's see what ROLI's got cooked up here.
All right.
Hey, it's Andrew Huang. And today we're looking at the ROLI Airwave, which is a device that sits at the top of a MIDI controller and can really accurately detect your hands, and so you can use your gestures to control different musical parameters. Thank you to ROLI for sponsoring this video. Let me show you how it works. So Airwave should be positioned flush with your MIDI controller. It connects to your computer with USB-C, and then it can just detect your hands. You might have to run a quick calibration procedure where you press 2 notes down with your index fingers, and that aligns your hand visuals with the keyboard visuals. There's also some different views, and you can even change what keyboard you're looking at. So for instance, if you've got a Rise 2, this visual will perfectly line up with your MIDI controller. Let's try that out. Just in case you're not aware, this is the Seaboard Rise 2. It's ROLI's squishy MIDI controller. I'm sure they've got more technical, cool ways to describe it, but it's a MIDI controller and it's squishy. Now check this out. I'm gonna use the sustain pedal so I can lift both my hands. So if you look in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, you can see that it's tracking these 3 gestures that they're calling air raise, air glide, and air tilt. So raise is just up and down, glide is to the side, and tilt is kind of rotating your wrist outward. There's a little bit of a dead zone just above the surface of the keys. Like right now you can see none. Oh, it is detecting tilt there. I guess that's handy because you're not usually tilting your hands while you're playing, so you can immediately get that tilt. But yeah, the glide doesn't take effect because obviously that would be constantly happening as you're moving around the keys. And then raising, you have to go a certain amount, and I think it's your wrist actually that it detects before it activates. So you have some room to move around the keys and play totally normally without worrying about accidentally triggering these gestures. Now there are so many things to talk about here. So at launch there's going to be about 100 synth presets, and by the way, these are all connected to ROLI's Equator 2 software synth. If you go to the Airwave panel, you can see what it's tracking. And these are all assignable to pretty much any parameter on the synth, so you can just click one and then drag on a parameter to adjust how much you want it to modulate it. And of course, you can assign them to multiple things, so they can all be macro controls. You can assign the modulation to like the amount of another modulation, if that makes sense. So the way that I am positioning my gesturing hand could affect things like the pressure of a key and the amount that that control is doing its thing. You can see that it is tracking both hands, but in the current iteration, it's just taking the highest value of either hand. So doing this was kind of unnecessary. I could just gesture with one hand, but they have told me they plan to develop the system further where maybe each hand could control different things. And the system is actually detecting your fingers as well. I mean, it's detecting like your bones, all the joints in your hands. I actually have access to something that is not part of the consumer release version of this product, but you can see the tech that they're using to track your hands. Those colored points are all my joints. I mean, there's a big ball in the middle of my hand, but got all these knuckles. So maybe individual finger control would be possible later on. I mean, don't hold me to that, but there's so many possibilities with this. I guess I'll also mention the way it detects your hands is just through 2 infrared cameras, so kind of like a stereo image with infrared light, so it works in lots of different lighting conditions. It's not like X-raying your hands or anything harmful like that. And a really cool thing that they're doing with this is using it for educational purposes. So they've got a platform where by tracking your hands with this system, they can actually give you feedback about your posture, about your technique, obviously about things like your note accuracy. So I'm really excited about what that means for people who maybe can't afford ongoing lessons, or even if you can, your practice can be that much more effective because, you know, when I was a kid learning piano, I might go home and try and practice something, and then I'd go back to my teacher the next week and she'd be like, you've been doing that wrong. So your hours and hours of practice this week, you kind of learn some habits that you now have to unlearn and fix. Ooh, I like the stereo spread when you open your hands up. Oh, and the tilt here is very like ethereal. With a pitch glide. Up an octave? Yeah. Oh, that is cool. There's one other one that did that stereo spread thing that I really like, Rain in the 80s. And this one's very dynamic, like the sound really changes. Oh yeah, this was also one where like, you could kind of strum extra notes with the raise gesture, and then glide starts introducing these little raindrops. And if you've got a good stereo setup, or if you're in headphones, you can hear how fun that is. And then yeah, the air tilt in this case is more of a filter opening thing. This one has a whole beat to it. I have to say, it feels so natural to play like this. Like, this is a brand new technology, but just being able to use your hands and arms gesturing to affect the music, it almost feels like something that I should have been able to do all along, and I finally can. So that's the Airwave. Interested to hear what you think in the comments. I'll see you next time.
Damn, they couldn't have picked a better person to try that out on. He's like a kid in a candy store with that toy.
Yeah. And like I said, like conducting, I mean, but in a very cool way, being able to control all those different gestures and, you know, basically 3 axes, you know, right there. And that's awesome.
Well, and you're kind of sound sculpting, like, you know, that I feel that's a toy for me. I want one. See my hands. I want to be able to do that so much.
Yeah, that definitely would be very cool.
Yeah,
I'll
he
put it
gets
on my
to
wish
play.
list too.
He gets to play with some of the coolest things. The last time we looked at one of his videos, he had that like hat, that little beanie that like translated thoughts into sounds, which I thought that was cool. But like this, this is something I want.
And like you said, well, as he started getting used to it, it was probably very much as like, why couldn't I do this before? Why wasn't it already this way? You know?
Well, we had to get there. Technology is a slow burn.
Yeah, but I could see getting used to that in like no time, and immediately like playing somewhere else where I don't have that, it would immediately feel like something's missing, right?
Yeah. That it's very natural to jump in on, and I don't think I'd want to live without it after getting to use it.
Nice.
You definitely sold me on that one, Andrew, and I love your reviews. Keep it up, and I will be forever back to see the toys you get to play with.
And keep getting those toys, and we'll keep watching.
Yep.
For sure.
At Andrew Hong. Awesome site for it. The equipment reviews. If you're a synth advocate like me, like the man knows like synths, old school, new school, and something like this. This is 21st century.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. We had some fun videos tonight. Like I'm ready to spend some money. As soon as I can make some, I'm ready to spend some. Yes. Get my list ready for Santa Claus, and that's number 2 on the list.
Did you pick out a microphone as one of the things on your list?
Well, the 7B is definitely like, I need at least one.
Yeah, I would like to do that myself.
But I want the new one with the air built in.
Exactly. Glad they put it in there. I don't remember if they changed the letter, like SM7BA or something.
Yeah, it has an additional letter. That's how you know.
Exactly. Good stuff. But thanks for corralling the videos up again. You know, and again, new channels, old channels, a little bit of both. Getting everything together for the week.
Oh yeah, Chris was a great addition. Like that doubleheader got me fired up for this weekend. I'm going to be playing with both his recommendations.
Always love free software, free VSTs. Always a good thing.
Yeah, and Tiff might have talked me into like going back to work. And hey, prompt engineers, I think I could do that.
Absolutely. Again, you know, the skill sets that you've put together over the years, you know, do line up very well for that particular field.
Yeah.
Good stuff. I might have to look into it myself. I wasn't as heavy on the programming side, but the whole troubleshooting flow and all of that.
You could always get a job as an AI voice, because they'd all hire you.
And now, coming up next.
Coming up tomorrow, we're going to have some more poetry coming from Tommy Open Minds. He's been bringing us some great poets, and Fridays have kind of turned into a creative jam of poetry and prose. And if you like that kind of thing, we're going to be jamming on it tomorrow night.
Nice. Bring it on.
Yeah.
For me, the summer's been busy for Saturdays and Fridays and Sundays. We had a couple of weekends where we had gigs from Thursday through Sunday straight through. So Fridays are always tough for me. But if I'm around, I stop in.
Yeah, I will be there.
Very cool. And thanks for everybody for coming out and joining us this evening. Bunch of good videos.
Yes, and now we're more on YouTube. We don't know what's up with BandLab at the moment. They haven't really given any details on what's going on with their streaming, but if we find anything out, we'll let you know.
Yep. Meantime, find it on YouTube. We're there.
Night, everyone.
Thanks for joining us. See ya.
Workstations and music tools, we explore theory, gear at 82. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac, and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin Shhh I.T. educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam, with the tutorials and tips on how much rap. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking We're talking IT. We're talking